joining. Some other administrative topics. We are many, so we are planned this webinar as a roundtable, which means that you are welcome to make your comments. We have a discussion in later on in the agenda, and during the discussion, you can intervene. You can intervene by using the chat, and my friends from Prato, they will watch the chat to see if there are questions to be asked. Please, after we start, put your microphone on mute, otherwise it will be quite noisy. And as usual, we will publish everything on the website of Universities of Europe in a few days when the report will be ready, together with some handouts and so on. Now, let me share the agenda, and so that I explain what it is about. Just a moment, I have to share it. So, share. Okay, so this is not the usual webinar as we do as we did in the past. I mean, not only it's a roundtable, but it is also about making a proposal about moving further in the future, in the near future, in the very near future, into creating an interest group about cybersecurity. So in our agenda, we have today some testimonials of experiences they have in their own city about managing cybersecurity. It will be introduced by Oliver Schwab. Oliver is the principal web weaver and founder of the Open European Network of Enterprise Innovation, and he's also a top expert in cybersecurity, working for Rolls-Royce. In this testimonial, we have Hervé Groleas, CIO of the Lyon Metropolis, Ruth Barclay from CIO of Cork, Paolo Boscolo of Prato, Martin Ferguson, Policy and Research Director of Socratim UK, and then we have Rossen Neidonov. Excuse me, Rossen, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it well. I'm sure I'm not.
Yeah, that's fine. Just okay. Rossen, it's fine.
Okay, Rossen is your name, and he's officer in the Network of Information Security in ISAC, which is an agency from the European Commission, dealing with cybersecurity.
In the agency, not the Commission, the European Agency for Cybersecurity.
Sorry, for the error. After those initial testimonials, 5 minutes each, Oliver Schwab will take over again, and he will give an overview about our idea or what we want to propose about ISAC, which is Information Sharing and Analysis Center. We will mention what it is and how it works. And after the discussion, we will have Remco van der Spiegel, who is working as an EU-funded project for an ISA, and it's about empowering the ISAC initiatives. Finally, Oliver will mention the next step we are foreseeing and invite you to join, and I will wrap up everything at the end to be sure that we are all in sync. So I would suggest that we start. So Oliver is going to be the moderator of the next 5 testimonials. So Oliver, please take over now from me. I put on mute.
Oh dear. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining. We've got 38 participants, which I think, Giorgio, everyone, thanks for the interest and the support here. As Giorgio mentioned, I have 2 hats on. One is working for Rolls-Royce in the cyber, among others, the cyber assurance space, and also very curious about how people work together. And over the past 6 months, we sort of began having discussions with some colleagues here, some of the panelists, about how do we protect ourselves? How do we, at Rose, for example, we have issues. There's just so much information out there. How do we protect ourselves? We protect ourselves mainly with conversations among, with partners, with suppliers, with other divisions. What is important? What is important out there? So we began having some conversations, and out of that merged, I think, evolved a lot of interest in how do we share better? How do we share the really important information better among each other? And we went on a journey of discovery. And I'd like to now basically invite some of the colleagues here, to the panelists, to share how they share knowledge, where they learn from, how that works. And I think we'll see at the end of a bit of the presentations, the cases, when we get into the discussion. This is really open. This is for us all. This big question is, can we protect ourselves better by sharing information? It's a subject that fascinates me. I think Major Cities Europe is a fantastic place. Enjoyed working with everyone to date and in the future. So I think the big question is, as we had our interviews, we were hearing, people do protect themselves, right? We found ways of dealing with this huge information overload, and maybe that's a good place. I'd reach out just to Ruth for the moment, because when we were talking with Ruth and still talking, Ruth, you came up with a wonderful analogy, which is it's David against Goliath. So I just wanted to, ask you basically as a starter now, how does Cork as David, how do you help protect your city, your citizens? What makes it work, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Am I limited to the 5 minutes? Is this what you want us to do,
Yes,
Oliver?
please.
Yeah, no
Yes,
problem.
please.
Well, if I start by telling you a little bit about Cork and about local authorities in Ireland. We have 31 local authorities in Ireland, and each of us are independent, standalone. We don't share infrastructure, but we do share some services. But each of us has a highly centralised IT department in our organisation. And each one of us has a representative on a national group called the Heads of Information Group. And there's a big level of trust. We meet regularly, we share, we collaborate. And over the years, we've had a lot of shared experiences. And I wanted to give you an example of the kind of experiences I've had as CIO, which has led me to collaborate with the major cities around ISACs today. We all remember WannaCry. We all remember Conficker. In my organization 4 years ago, cyber literally jumped to the top of our risk register because we had a breach. We had a pay parking service, which was outsourced to another company, a third party company. A few other local authorities use this, and they rang us on a Wednesday 4 years ago to say, we've discovered somebody's been in our system. And that began a roller coaster. I suspect many of you have been through it. I certainly have. It ended up in the courts this year. And we were lucky. We drew down our cyber insurance. We flew in KPG from the UK. We brought them on site. Within a few days, we had a report. We were obliged to log our experience with the data protection commissioners in Dublin. We were on the national news, which was a lovely experience as Chief Information Officer of Cork City Council. There was a reporter outside the door. As we went into council, I had to explain personally to 31 members of council why we had lost this data and why they would have confidence that we could keep any data secure. So that was our first real experience of how a relatively small data breach can have huge implications for your reputation, for citizen confidence. And since then, I suppose we've all seen how the cyber events are becoming more and more frequent. They're becoming very sophisticated. And no matter how dedicated your own staff are or how much you collaborate with third parties, I always feel we're one step or a few steps behind. So when it comes to ISACs, I'm very, very interested in this peer-to-peer sharing. I have really good experience in my own sector. I'll give you an example, a very recent example of where I felt my own sector, once again, we helped each other. In early March, there was the Hafrium cyber event. And this was something that our Centre for our certs, the Irish cert team issued a flash notification on the 2nd or 3rd of March, I think, to all the public bodies, and everybody duly patched, and we were all patting ourselves in the back until a colleague in Dublin, another local authority, on a Saturday night started to look at the log files, started to think, he started doing some research. Now he had patched, he was finishing for the night, and he came to the conclusion this wasn't over. And he emailed all 31 of us on a Saturday night. This is only a few weeks ago, about 5 or 6 days after the original event, and he sounded the alarm. And I would credit that colleague with perhaps saving many of us from having a serious infiltration and loss of data. And it's that kind of peer-to-peer, ad hoc, unofficial, but incredibly valuable, generous act of sharing, which has, in my experience, helped my sector repeatedly. I suppose I'm very conscious of time, but for me personally, I feel the way forward has to be about collaboration, about a collective approach. No one organization is going to be able to manage to meet all the risks that are coming towards us. And this risk is not static, it's evolving, it's sophisticated. We're David, and the cyber incidents are Goliath, and they're going to continue. Personally, I'm very keen to collaborate with the major cities. I'm very conscious that there's great exemplars of ISACs, particularly in the Netherlands and in other areas of Europe. And I'd love to bring that learning back to my own Irish sector so we can build on the trust we have and the peer-to-peer networking that we have and work together to continue to be successful. Because in the end of the day, 99% of the time we are successful, but it's becoming increasingly difficult. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth. I always find it fascinating to hear the personal stories. This is what I learned from my whole career, the real, my profession, my time around. It's these personal stories that with me. And when we were doing all of our interviews, it's, you know, we always noticed that what really stayed with us was the stories, the personal stories, the attitudes coming forward. I love David and Goliath. I love peer-to-peer sharing. What is interesting, everyone is, you know, being part of Major Cities Europe, you have these conversations. We've spoken with other cities who are not involved with Major Cities Europe, and you know, they're a lot more careful and cautious, and who are you and things like that. So we have an incredible room to have those discussions. Thanks, Ruth. I think we'll come back to 1 or 2 points in the discussion. Giorgio, is Hervé here? Was he able to join us?
Yes, I'm here.
Ah, hooray! So, you have heard Ruth, and you know, obviously we've had conversations with you, and you live in a world where this sort of information sharing also happens, right? Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you, Oliver. Of course, I wanted to talk about the way we are organized to talk together, to share feedbacks. So there is an organization called Cité Plus in France. It was created in 1995, and it's a CIO group, and it concerns cities with more than 100,000 residents. And this concerns roughly 40 cities in France. And so who can participate to this group? Only CIO can attend the group, and this cannot be delegated to other people. So the group is roughly between 20 and 30 members. It's very important because with 20 or 30 people, we know each other very well. And so we are sure we can exchange in confidence. So there are two very important principles. First, there is no delegation. I cannot send someone else to these meetings, and there are not too many participants. Second point, what is the form of the structure? Because in fact, there is no legal structure. It is an informal structure. It is not a political group, but a technical group linked with what is called in France, France Urbaine, which is the political association of cities over 100,000 residents. And in fact, we do not need a legal existence because our activities do not need money, and it is not a lobbying structure. It's only a place to share and to share feedbacks. How this group is organized, there is a kind of a everlasting group leader, and I am this this group leader. And it is there is also a private group list. This means that only a member of the group can send an email to the group. We used to share feedback on a SharePoint, but this, in fact, this never worked well. So we are not using it at the moment. How can someone join the group? Of course, when the CIO leaves a city, the new CIO can join the group. And the membership of a new CIO, which is not in the group, is subject to group acceptance. We meet roughly 2 or 3 times a year. Now, of course, it's very different because of the sanitary crisis. And what do we do in this group? Of course, we share feedback on what we do and how we do it. We've got a question and answer on emails, and we share the results, the consolidated results, and we can have dedicated meetings on the specific themes, for example, on cybersecurity. And we produce some documents. For example, we used to work a few years ago on the annual IT department financial observatory. And we built also an IT department activities repository, and we are working on at the moment on the second city IT maturity observatory. And but what is I think very important is because we have a lot of discussion on this point with Oliver and Giorgio, is it works because we are only 20 or 30. We are not 200. We're not 1,000, and so it's very important to remain a small group. And often, of course, if you want to expand it, we have to create, I think, small groups who interact together. So it's done, Oliver. If you've got maybe some question of it.
Well, this is the amazing thing we found. So everyone, and Georgia was very supportive, and we were talking. Last year, we also created an EU funding proposal to do, let's say, ISACs in manufacturing, and had many similar conversations. So, you know, speaking with Ruth, the 30 CIO network, they're learning from each other, they're helping each other, very informal. They just know each other. And then we had the conversation with Hervé, and Hervé was listening to us and saying, "Oh, that it's called City Plus," and we were all sort of thought it was really fantastic. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I just had some network issues. And then we sort of also went back to or Ruth mentioned, "Hey, aren't you doing an ISAC?" And it was like, Ruth, we looked into that and we said, well, yes, Ruth, it's an ISAC. And this is where we began conversations with various colleagues. So we felt sort of City Plus is a great place, and then ISAC is a great shape. But what in fact is it? It's a simple conversation with simple tools and what works versus trying to, you know, build what might work. So this is a lot about, can we make it work for us as a group? In that respect, Paolo, maybe I can ask you to share your thinking. You know, we've heard from Ruth with Ireland. We've heard from Hervé in France. We also spoke with Gianluca from Firenze, and who was saying, look, we have no chance. We have no chance to protect ourselves. Well, maybe we can. So, Paolo, your thoughts, perhaps?
Yeah. my opinion is that as a city, we are alone in front of the cybercrime. More or less is the same. So the situation is similar to that the Ruth described, also in Italy. As a city, we have no network. From this point of view, we have no experience on that also to create a peer-to-peer network on this topic. We have a institutional network, but of course they are managed. This network is managed by the government. Is a government agency that is running this network, and so they their willingness is to create a network, but obviously, considering the relation we have with the government, and also that the charge this institution has is to control that we are doing the things correctly, the relation we have is not a peer-to-peer relation. We are afraid to say that we are vulnerable, and we only receive alert from them, but we don't receive any support. This is a problem. On the other hand, we have a lot of professional and company that in the last days and months are offering us a lot of services on this field. But again, we are in front of some people that want to make business, not to help us, not necessary to help us. Their main objective is to make business with our security. I had an experience a couple of months ago where I assigned to this company a service for a vulnerability assessment, and I received a report big like that for just 3 machines. How can be useful for me? Because I need practical input to solve my problem, not a relation like that. So I had a positive experience of a peer-to-peer network some years ago when we were at the beginning of the privacy regulation, and we have to create the structure for managing the GDPR. And in that occasion, the region organized a group of city in the region to decide together how to do the things, how to organize this group, how to put in place the measure that the regulation was obliged to put in place, and so on and so on. And it was successful because there was a lot of things in the law that was not clear to be defined, etc. And the relation with other cities similar to me was very useful, and we prepared a framework that was also copied by other cities. So I think I don't want to add much more than that because the situation I think is very similar to the other. But my expectation is that to create something that is really a peer-to-peer network will be very useful, because also, and I think this problem will be increasing in the next days and next month, because in the last 2 years I have been noticed no more than 1 or 2 potential attack, in some cases real attack with no severe consequences. In the last 2 months, I'm now at the 4th event, and at least 2 of them were very serious. So I'm really scared about that and about the future on this field.
Yeah.
So it's welcome. This initiative is really welcome.
You remind me of another nice analogy Ruth shared, which is, wouldn't it be nice to have an earthquake? I love the analogy. So this is an early tremor warning system. I think the ISACs provide as well. We have so much to learn from each other, and I think this is we see with City Plus, we see in Ireland, these relationships already exist and it works. So how do we expand? How do we develop? Does it create value to connect a city in Ireland with a city in Italy or in Croatia, Daniel, right? Many questions that popped up, but this ability to sort of, how do we focus on what's relevant? That email on a Saturday night, as a positive example, or that, huge report, Paolo. So what's important? What's important? It's my biggest challenge as well. We all face dozens of emails every day or phone calls. What's important? What do we focus those scarce resources on? I call my friends sometimes. And it's a lot about friends, right? Friends along those lines. And Major Cities Europe, I think, is in a really great place. So what we've heard from Ruth and Hervé and Paolo sort of reflects a lot what we were hearing from other members of Major Cities Europe, and in some cases from cities that were not members of Major Cities Europe, but very cautious in that respect. And then we began seeing that there are also, or understanding, it's not just individual cities connecting with each other. We also have associations that exist, like Major Cities Europe, Soccer Team, which try to create that space for these conversations to happen. Right? Just because there's someone on the list, what Paolo, if he doesn't know the person in Hamburg, Jörn, Why should he call him? You know, how do you create that? So Martin, I think you're online. I just wanted to, maybe you can share a little bit about how Soccertim creates space for information sharing. Maybe not consciously, but you are creating that space. You know, any thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you, Oliver, and thank you, everybody. So I put around a note, which I think Giorgio may have shared, and I'm not proposing to go through that, but it provides a bit of the background and context within which Soccertim and its now 2,500 members throughout the UK operate and share knowledge and best practice. Within Soccertim, we have a governance structure that includes what we call a local CIO council, and Jeff Connell, who's on the call, chairs that particular group. So that has regional representation from across the UK, and we share on a range of issues, including, of course, cyber security and cyber resilience. We also have a group called the Cybersecurity Technical Advisory Group, again chaired by Jeff Connell, gets everywhere. And it's not just chaired by Jeff Connell, I would say it's led by Jeff Connell. And Jeff, when he was president of Soccertim a few years ago, really put that particular group on the map, so to speak. And I think, you know, we're very lucky in the UK in having a national cyber security centre, and Jeff was instrumental in bringing to the attention of the National Cyber Security Centre the role of local public services and local government in interacting with the public. Something like 60%, we believe, of all transactions between government and the public in the UK take place at the local level, between local government and citizens and businesses and other users of public services. So local government is very important part of the infrastructure, but equally, of course, at risk. And I just want to share a little bit about some of the experiences, the strategy that we have in the UK, the knowledge base and support and tools, and then just something about future plans. So first of all, like many countries, we have a growing experience, of course, of threats and attacks. And most recently, the London Borough of Hackney, so a significant part of London, was the subject of a ransomware attack. And that, they reckon, cost in the region of £10 million to the local authority, £10 million. But the cost to local residents, businesses and charities is unknown. The loss of reputation, of course, is another consideration, and Ruth referred to that. And Hackney is not alone. There have been other attacks on other local authorities throughout the country. But that's where our national cyber security strategy comes in. And that was first created by the government in 2016 and provided a strategic basis for addressing cyber security within the nation. So building the national capabilities and sharing and communicating good practice. There was a £650 million programme established, and wait for it, £0, yes, zero, for local government. So one of the tasks we had as Soccertim with our partners was to lobby for funding and resources to support the development of capabilities within the local government sector. And we were successful to the tune of £1.5 million to create a national programme for local government. So it's 1.5 out of the £650 million. But having said that, I think we used it extremely effectively with a range of partners, undertaking what we called a local government security stocktake to look at the maturity of local government authorities, local councils, in relation to their ability to withstand cyber security threats and attacks, and indeed to respond to those where necessary. So in phase one, 100% of the councils participated in the survey and the assessment. And in phase two, 200 councils out of the 440, I think it is, across the UK, or across England, sorry, were funded to address key issues and vulnerabilities. So we got to a point where we had a good understanding of the maturity and the gaps, if you like, within local authorities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving on from there, I think the issues of leadership across place are important, and we've run a series of consultations. So William Barker, who's on the call, led those consultations at St George's House in Windsor, looking at the leadership issues around security, cybersecurity. We've had the development of tools and support through the National Cybersecurity Centre, an extensive range, and I included those in my notes. Also initiatives in Scotland and Wales. We've had efforts to build capabilities within the local government sector. And then I come lastly to the peer-to-peer support, which has already been mentioned. And here the Cybersecurity Technical Advisory Group acts as the umbrella for a range of regional groups across the country called WARPs, or Warning and Reporting Points. They were set up way back in the early 2000s to address the threats of cybersecurity attacks and the sharing of best practice. And that continues to this day in a peer-to-peer nature, and it's very similar ways to Ruth and how Ruth and Hervé have described in their situations. We also have a cybersecurity information sharing partnership across the UK, which is run by the National Cybersecurity Centre, which shares intelligence about threats in a timely and efficient manner. And lastly, on future plans to build capabilities and skills in local public services, potentially regional centres of excellence. And the National Cybersecurity Centre will be doing more work on the international environment, on the basis that it's all very well protecting ourselves within the UK, but like COVID, cyber gets everywhere, and we need to be protecting our colleagues and partners in countries around the world equally. And I think that brings us back to this particular session. So at the local level, building those relationships across Europe and beyond to share the knowledge and experience that is generated from the experience of cybersecurity and its impacts on communities.
You've raised so many interesting points. Thank you.
Oliver, just one information. What Martin mentioned is in the paper he sent me today. We will share the paper with everybody together with our report later on.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I just wanted to pick out before we go over to Rossen. One is, it's interesting. On the one hand, we have City Plus, a peer-to-peer network, 20 to 30 members, similar in Ireland, and in our research as well. We always see the sort of 20 to 30 group size is actually quite optimal. It appears all the time. And then we have associations with hundreds, if not thousands, of members. And I sometimes wonder whether there are probably small groups in there that function particularly well. And just one comment, there was, Steph, you posted a question. You just attended a huge conference on cyber by a private, large IT service provider. This is Paolo's comment around, and Ruth as well. I think this is peer-to-peer seems a lot more open among CIOs versus having commercial organizations involved. We smell the commercial interest. It's valid, right? But maybe we don't want to share everything with them. Or with Paolo saying, yes, government organizations are there, but they also have a control function. Do we want to share everything with them? So we at least see a lot of the really valuable information as those small peer-to-peer groups who share. And this is again an analogy from Ruth. Sort of badge of honor. We're serving our citizens. We're trying to help our citizens. Different dynamics, and one of the things we're trying to sort of help evolve here, I think, among us all, is see what works, and can we scale it? Can we help each other in that respect? Very much peer-to-peer focused. So as we went through those conversations and learned about ISACs as well, we realized I'll talk about that later a little bit. There's a huge effort by the EU through NASA. You know, I mean, this is an agency of the European Union, and one of the tools they promote is something called ISACs, and therefore we had conversations with Rossen, who represents this sort of space a little bit for us. And we said, look, you know, we're looking to create this community. It might be an ISAC, it might be called that, for cities. And we had a fascinating conversation. And that's why, you know, Rossen, maybe you can tell us a little bit. What are ISACs? What does INISA do? Are we different? Well, what's happening?
Yes, so you are different and you are not different. So let me give you the differences and the commonalities. So first, I would like to introduce ENISA. So ENISA is the European Union Agency on Cybersecurity. So we are a European agency. By this, we are paid by the taxes of you, all of you, me, myself, my father, my mother. So we don't have a commercial interest. This is what I want to state here. So our idea, our main goal as an agency is to bring the European Union level of cybersecurity to a higher state. So we would like to promote good practices and help as much as possible communities to bring them to a higher level of cybersecurity. Of course, different communities have different maturity, and we understand this. So because of this, we have invested our time and our resources to identify what are the ISACs and how they operate and how we can support them. So obviously, we have identified in Europe, at least, two different models, which are of how they operate. And one is obviously collecting money from the members, and then the other is that members provide effort. So not really money, but effort. ENISA, as an agency, we cannot give money to the ISACs, but we can provide effort and we can provide information that we have collected that might be helpful to the ISACs. So we are providing support such as creating terms of references, non-disclosure agreements, and so on and so forth. And we are also working currently with one project empowering ISACs, from which you are going to hear from Remco, I think, where they are also offering systems, technical support for ISACs to work. And this is for free, so this doesn't cost money. They are offering, as well as systems, they are offering also the possibility to organize meetings and so on and so forth, and specific sessions on topics of interest. Now, ENISA has been working in ISACs for more than 10 years now. The oldest ISACs that we support is from the financial ISAC from 2008. So from 2008, the financial ISAC exists. And I can give you immediately the success factors there for the ISAC. First, there is no legal body behind it. So people are happy to share because there is no legal obligation and there is no legal, how should I say, fear that something will happen when you share this information. Because we are aware that the information that you are going to share might be sensitive. Of course, it will not be, in terms of sensitivity, commercially sensitive, but it will be sensitive. So this has been sought by the financial entities, and you can imagine they're the ones that have a lot of money. And they decided that, no, we're not going to go this direction, that we're going to have let's say, a legal body that we can, then keep everyone, legally binded to provide this information. So they understand that this information sharing doesn't work like this. It's on a voluntary basis. So the people contribute, and this way they also expect to receive information. Yep. We just had the meeting today, actually, with the financial ISAC in the morning, where we had 26 different financial institutions all over Europe, where they discussed and they shared information about the attacks, about how they have protected themselves. And, this way we understood that even the smallest one entity that doesn't have the budget, let's say, for cybersecurity, can be protected because they will learn from the big ones and they will get the, the practicality of what they have to do in order to be protected. So this is where and we saw that this is a good opportunity for us to support the ISACs, and in this case the cities ISACs, whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it like this. Just one other thing that I would like to mention is that the ISACs are always led by the community themselves. So neither ENISA nor the Commission, nobody else should take over to what you are doing. So the ISAC that you maybe plan to organize should be led by you, and because you know what do you need most and how it should be organized. Yeah. So this is where we come in. We can tell you how the others have done it, but it is up to you to decide how you want to go about it, and we are here to support you. So that's it from my side.
Thanks, Rossen. Thanks, Rossen. Brings us to the end of our sort of panelist theme, and now I'm sort of, Giorgio's scheduled for 15 minutes to talk about ISACs, but I think I'll keep it just very short. So we've heard some stories, and I hope you share some of the curiosity and interest in what can I learn from my peers. Seems to be working for some other cities. Benefit from this as a group in a peer-to-peer environment, so not with a commercial element influencing us. How do we build? How do we move from a very small group of people sharing knowledge to something maybe in Ireland where we have 30 CIOs informally sort of connecting things? France City Plus, I think, is a fantastic story. How can we learn from them? How can we perhaps together create something like this? And yes, one can do it without funding. In parallel, we've been thinking a lot about, what central EU funding sources, for example, are available in the New Horizon Europe program. Lots of exploration as we develop together something that will help us. So, and if we want to go in this direction, I think, what has ENISA, an EU agency, been around for 10 years. There's an EU project we'll hear from in a moment that facilitates ISACs on their path to growing and being effective. I think we all share that badge of honor that, Wim mentioned, digital knights protecting our cities and our citizens. And as we thought about, and then I'll open up the discussion a little bit, as we thought about everything that we've been learning, we sort of came up with a, what if question. What if we were all able to collaborate more rapidly, more widely, more intensively in sharing what we think is something called sensitive personal knowledge. So this is not just the stuff coming from or from commercial companies and alerts and all of these things, but the truly sensitive, important stuff we share anyway with friends. If we could do that, then we would probably be able to, and Steph asked the question here, how to protect ourselves from this incredibly well-organized, well-funded hacking world. Then, we can probably together, as lots of little Davids, improve resilience, improve our protection, reduce the impact on what is happening, respecting that the true impact of something is seldom talked about. Martin, you mentioned £500,000. Paolo has also shared stories in the past around sort of some ransomware costs. But what does it really cost? Now, what really happened? What really happened is valuable. And if we could do that, then, well, what does that mean? That means that, all of us are helping our cities implement digital solutions, e-government. We deal with citizen records. We deal with, financial records, utilities. Well, we could probably implement a lot more effectively. I'm not saying it's easy. It's very difficult, but together it might, shared pain is halved pain, so to speak, but we may learn little things here and there. And I think this is what we're trying to create here, as a space to explore together. Can we go on this journey? And that's where I'd like to open up the discussion a little bit. If you sort of things pop into your mind, questions, what could this look like, we feel that we need at least 10 or 12 colleagues from major cities Europe to launch this effort. It's not funded yet, right? This is just part of working together. We're going to start together looking for funding opportunities and resourcing and staffing opportunities. But how could this work? Well, how do you feel about this? I'm very excited because I see this is the way industry definitely works. I see it works in governmental organizations. We know each other. But here we see each other sort of on video. We're members of Major Cities Europe. How could this work? What concerns do you have? What questions? How could this help you? What sort of thoughts come to mind? I'll just be quiet for a second. Would you like to do something like this? Is it sensible?
Unmute yourselves. If I may add, Oliver, I would also ask to our colleagues what they would not like to do about it. I mean, what are the barriers they say? What they disagree with us about this idea? It would be interesting to learn what are their concerns also.
And maybe you could just pop them in the chat. And while we wait, Edna, thank you for joining us. Edna is really a wonderful expert in the space of understanding value. What value could this have, and how do we understand where to focus us? And Edna, maybe you could share one or two words on how we might be able to measure the value of working together like this. There are models out there.
Thank you very much. I'm of course honored to join you. I am first of all about myself. I am the founder and the chair of the Israel Smart Cities Institute, which is an NGO, and we are a member of Major Cities Europe, and we are very happy to contribute. And in addition, I am a member of the network led by Dr. Oliver Schwab, and I got the network to collaborate with Major Cities Europe, and this is how all of this effort has emerged, which is really a pleasure. Now, I have been active in the area of knowledge management and innovation management for many, many years. And this led me to the passion of looking where open innovation is happening. And of course, this led me to focus on cities. And this is the background that is relevant to what we are trying to do together. Now, the big challenge in creating a great projects and great innovation is that the old measurement of adding value is no longer relevant. How do you measure the success of such an effort that was described by Oliver and some of you? This is what is known as intangible assets. Can we measure the unmeasurable? And the answer is yes. It has been developed for many years now by some of our friends in the network, which is now in Europe led by Oliver. One of them is Professor Leif Edvinsson from Sweden, who first developed it. And another one is a colleague of mine from New York University, who is an accountant and Professor Baruch Lev, and says that the old way to measure a value of organizations is passé, the bottom the bottom line of profit, and we are all committed to the triple bottom line of profit and people and planet, of course, when we run cities. So how can we measure that? And the idea was to add a report to the financial activity of for-profit and non-for-profit organizations, such as municipalities, by looking at some other aspects that measure their competencies. If we want an effective group that shares knowledge and information about sensitive issues such as cybersecurity, we would like to know if we are in the right direction, if we need to strengthen our competencies, and this is the idea. Measuring all the non-financial aspects is called intellectual capital, not intellectual property, which is a legal concept. Intellectual capital is all the intangible assets of an organization, a city, a municipality, an ecosystem, or a community. So we could apply that to our passion to develop these communities which share sensitive knowledge and information about potential risks, just as was described by Oliver and the other friends. Just to give some examples, we want to see if the group has enough knowledge in this area, because if, for example, we have a group and all of these people are newly appointed CIOs and their expertise is kind of lacking, we would like to see more diversity. Maybe in line with what we all believe now, we would like to see men and women. So there are elements of what we call human capital and process capital and innovation capital. We don't have enough time to go into it, but we would definitely love to add to our innovative proposal that will eventually, hopefully, be funded by the EU, the ability to measure that we are doing the right thing, that we are going in the right direction. So this is the idea behind it. Thank you.
And just everyone, I think so. Edna and I have known each other for decades, and I've also been in that knowledge management space, the networking, the social analysis space for many years. Understanding where we are creating value is important, right? And it's for the municipality world, it may be more of a cost theme than, I mean, the term profit doesn't really work in government in the same way as it does in industry. But it gives us a framework, a direction of travel, and suggests questions. And there's also one little piece which, you know, Edna always keeps me grounded on. This is not an engineered project. This is not, you know, this is a 3-year project. These are the work packages and tasks. We're trying to create a space for the behavior we've seen in City Plus or in Ireland to emerge, that trusted sharing. And it starts off with us being peers. And it continues with slowly building that trust, especially if we can't meet face to face. It's a bit of a difficulty. And Martin posted, obviously, a very interesting question. We have that 20 to 30 size of a group. It'll be interesting to see what happens as we develop. What happens when you hit a larger size, does it naturally split? We don't suspect it will be happening, but it's something we need to look at, and Ruth, with your comment, pairing up with similar cities is also very interesting, because similar is one thing. So Cork and Prato might be quite similar, or Firenze. What about, I always wonder about the smaller cities under 100,000. They are in dire need. Daniel, we spoke a little bit about, Rijeka, for example, city, I believe, or the many thousands of other cities. How do we help without becoming, but remembering that it's always small groups that sort of work? We have a few thoughts on that, how to meet, how to perhaps begin setting up something, and especially in this direction, on May 18th, we want to launch our group and actually begin in a formal process to see what works. How does it work? This is very much, I like to call it hop on, hop off. We're all very busy. Your time today is extremely valuable. How do we create this? And for this, and this is Remco, where I'd like to ask you to sort of share your thoughts, is besides ENISA as a sort of a big, the home, the home within which we move, there's an EU-funded project whose task is to take ideas like ours and support them in growing and facilitate them. So it's a bit of a guide to help us, but we remain the owners. We control content. We decide what to share and what not to share. So maybe it would help, Remco, if you could just give us a quick overview of how you might be able to help us start on this journey, and what it might take. It's obviously an experiment. It's a very big experiment. Right?
It is, of course. Thank you, Oliver. I even prepared some slides, so if you don't mind, I will share them.
Okay.
You see
and
them now?
While Remco's speaking, please feel free
No, it's
to
with you.
keep dropping stuff in the chat. Everything flows into the conversations we're having. I mean, we'd like to really start moving in this direction. There's a lot of help. It seems to be valuable. Let's explore together, and no question is ignored, right? So Remco, yours.
Thank you. So thank you. Yes, I'm representing the Empowering EU ISAC project, which is a European Commission project. So it's a project that we, as a consortium, run for the European Commission. And the mission of this project is indeed to support ISACs, to support existing ISACs in their daily operations, but also to mobilize ISACs in sectors where there's no ISAC at the moment. As Rossen already mentioned, ISACs are already there. FS ISAC is one of the first ones. We have an ISAC in the energy sector, also quite mature, and in the railway sector. Well, for example, we're now setting up an ISAC also in a maritime sector, and more sectors to come. We started last year, the project, and we will run the project until the end of next year. In this period, we will support the setup of ISACs. So what are key activities? We provide organizational support for ISAC, so helping them to mobilize themselves, find key players in a certain sector that should be part of an ISAC. We provide legal support within our consortium. We also have a legal partner that can support, for example, by setting up an NDA or a TLP protocol or terms of reference if needed, if desired, all just to support an ISAC, of course. And we're currently developing a information sharing and analysis platform that can be used by an ISAC. So a platform where information can be shared, where threats can be analyzed. MISP will be part of that platform. There will be ways of secure information sharing, having a file sharing tool there as well. And last but not least, we organize thematic workshops each year and conferences on specific topics to educate the community. Now, just to give you some examples of what we are currently doing to support new and existing ISACs. For example, we do a stakeholder analysis for an existing ISAC to see how to deal with all the different stakeholders and how to inform and engage these stakeholders. For a new ISAC, we are doing a promotion campaign to see, in coordination with ENISA, of course, that I forgot to mention in the previous slide. We're doing this jointly and in close cooperation with ENISA. So for this promotion, we're looking at what are the key players in a certain sector. We're, as I said, preparing this information sharing platform to be used that is free to use for ISACs for sectors. Good to understand that although the project will run until the end of next year, the information sharing platform will still be there. It will be maintained by ENISA. We're supporting a existing ISAC now with setting up their working groups and running them in an efficient manner. Getting ISAC started, of course, by founding members, not looking at what are the key organizations within a certain sector, but also are they active in cybersecurity? And we're working for different ISACs on the formalization, so helping them setting up terms of reference, for example.
Yep.
So this is what we do, all just to support the running and setup mobilization of ISACs. It's not that we provide the same support to all, but it's another one-size-fits-all approach, as the slide said.
Yep.
But this is the kind of support that we provide.
Thanks, Branko. So everyone, what I find fascinating is not only do we have, I think we're catching a sort of wave, right? Established EU agency with Horizon Europe, Digital Europe. We're seeing a lot of efforts going into supporting municipalities, governments. We need to be cyber safe. Municipalities are resource strapped endlessly. So are we in industry, by the way. The threat is not only massively well organized hacker groups going after commercial companies and cities, right? But also there are nation state actors out there who put thousands of staff onto campaigns against certain sort of spaces. In our conversations with various cities as we began this journey of exploration, is we came to, and there was a comment here from Cisco. I don't know the name behind that, but people were saying sort of, hey, I can't share confidential, sensitive information, for example. It's a bit more differentiated. So what we've seen is, for example, sometimes organization or people in organizations will share very sensitive information informally. It happens. That's one thing. People don't talk about it. Then we have organizations where the leaders of the organizations agree to share information, right? So that those who then share sensitive information are covered. We have in municipalities the political element, which is a challenge in itself, which we've all learned to deal with somehow. Fundamentally, sort of three classical areas have come out where knowledge might be relevant. So on an operation. This is operational, tactical, and strategic. So what might we be sharing? So on an operational level, there's been interest in saying, well, how did another city tackle, for example, the recent exchange problem? How did you do it? How did you notice it? What did you actually do? What challenges did you have in implementing it? So this is like a root cause analysis and a problem management process. How did you do it? How did it happen? And the great interest in learning how others dealt successfully or maybe even unsuccessfully with something. We can learn from that. You know, what challenges, and Ruth shared that nicely. So, you know, you've gone off exchange, you've patched everything, you think you're secure, but then someone in the group says, look, I don't think this is as binary, as black and white as we think. How do we make sure the threat actor is out of the system? Just closing the door doesn't mean the person or that threat actor may not still be in the house, right? So this was one specific question coming from colleagues, saying, you know, how did others handle this? How did you do it? What did you learn? On a tactical level, there was a couple of comments saying, what sort of things, let's say, do you do, let's say, organizationally? What sort of threats do you see to your industry? There was that couple of months ago, the Florida utility water company that was impacted. What do you do? What is your approach to preventing things like that happening? What has worked in reality? I'm not saying not what is supposed to work, but how do we actually deal with this?
Oliver, do you mind? I'm reading some of the comments in the chat.
Just one comment, then I'll be quiet. And the third thing was on a strategic level, right? You know, some cities share IT infrastructure, for example. Some involve themselves with EU projects to get resources. How do cities input to the EU cyber strategies and things like that? So these are the things, that sort of discussions that were happening. Many other examples. How do you bring your own device? How do you do, you know, Microsoft versus open text, for example? But Giorgio, yes, please.
So I'm trying to pick up some of the comments. Maybe I will forget some, so please just take the microphone and say it. For instance, from Megan is from United States, from the Center of Technology in Government. Would you like to give some perspective from New York State, Megan?
Sure. Actually, these comments, when I think about sharing this type of information around cybersecurity, CTG Albany has done quite a lot of work in understanding about knowledge sharing in general. So it could be about cybersecurity, but it could also be other topics. And I hear the word trust a lot. And one thing we do know is that, so there's different types of information sharing. When you're looking at an ISAC, so we have the MS ISAC, the multi-state, we have an election ISAC, and those are organizations where you become members, and the organization is trusted and you're sharing information there in order to take collective actions so they can have a broad look. But then you're also talking about information that you share, and somebody says, I can't share, you know, the security breaches that happened because I don't know all those people, but you're looking to get something back. And what we've learned is that creating another organization to share a type of information takes a long time. I would look at the platforms that you already have here, that you already have this trust with a smaller group of people. In New York State, there's the New York State local government IT directors, and they have been together it's been an organization for 40 years. Most of those people have been together a long time, and they share all of the information about their security breaches in a way that is it's absolutely closed. Their listserv is closed. When they meet in person, there are no other organizations there. And I would say that 50 to 60% share all of the things that go on in their cyber world. And the others listen. One of the conversations that we're having now is a pretty in-depth one on, these are really small municipalities who don't have a cybersecurity budget per se, but have been able to leverage funding from different grants and funding sources, which typically leads to, siloed and unable to have interoperable systems, but they have figured out a way to do that. So we're having discussions now about where they got the money from, how they use the money, and how they're able to piece it all together. But I guess when I listen to this conversation, I would look at those organizations that already have the trusted mechanisms in place, already have the groups, and again, start small, because you aren't going to want to share some of those thoughts with the larger group. And you might find that there's 10 others that want information from you as much as you want to give. Not everybody wants to share all of that. So those were just some of the things that I was thinking about, because sharing information with a formal organization for them to take collective action is a little bit different than a group of people wanting to swap ideas and strategies. And so keeping those two in mind.
Thank you. Gregor, you wanted to tell us a little bit experience in Zurich? Where you
Yes, I can. Thank you, Giorgio. I'm pleased to be here today. I'm running the operation center, so also the security operation lies within my responsibility. And our experience is really, it's important not just to look at the governmental things, but also what's going on in other industries. And our analysts, they have an exchange also cross-functional with some other people from finance, from producing and so on. And for us, that's very, very important, because that broadens our view and that gives us also perspective to future attacks or vectors that have been seen before in other arenas and industries. And we profit much from that. And maybe I can come back to Megan and also the colleague from France saying that this is sensitive. That's always an issue, but on an operational level, we discuss much more about how we handle this and how we tackle things, not mainly revealing all the details what happened to ourselves, but it's more about the experience, how you tackle those attacks. And I think there is a differentiation between what's very sensitive and what's more an operational procedure. Also, Oliver mentioned that. And there we have a lot of things we share, and we can profit from other industries.
Thank you. I see there a discussion between Rossen and Hervé. Hervé is suggesting something about the big cities and the smaller one, and Rossen is saying something different. Maybe you want to say what you think about it, Hervé and Rossen?
No, I wasn't saying different. I was agreeing, actually, providing, the ways why things are like this. Yes. So I totally agree also with Megan that it needs to start small with people who know each other, trust each other. And once it starts, then you can grow and add on top.
Thank you, Rosen. I actually do agree with what said Megan before. It's a different thing to find a place where you can get kind of public information. It's kind of marketplace, so you can share and you can get information, and this can be in a quite of a wide scale. But if you want a place where you can tell your real problem, what are your breaches, it has to remain a very small group. Of course, you can have interaction between the two if there is an anonymization of the data. And so I think this is the main difficulty of the network because the problem is we are all in a lot of networks, and I don't want to be in yet another network, So because being in another network is finding some more time, okay? So I think that there is a question on how can we upgrade the existing networks?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting conversations I've been in when we gathered and we had 4 local governments talk through some pretty significant breaches, and we went on a in the beginning we did like what you did in the first 10 minutes that you figured it out, what you then we timelined it out until we got to days. And then we went back and we said, what would you have done different? And I think people learn from that. You know, we had lots of other people in the room saying, well, you know, what you did at an hour and a half in, why didn't you do that at 10 minutes in? And they'd, you know, we're like, well, we didn't have all the information right then. Okay. So then, you know, and putting it out like that was probably one of the most useful exercises that we've all done, because we learned what, you know, they had protocols in place, but what the natural thought process is in a response to an incident and the people you have around you. And it makes you understand, well, we had this policy, but it was out of date. It wasn't accessible. And it really was one of the best exercises we've ever done. So when I hear you talk about it, that's what I think back to, because that changed the game for the people in the room because they learned so much from others.
One comment.
Something, Giorgio. Could I add something?
Please, you're welcome.
I wanted to say that the challenge is how to create such trusting groups. Is it possible at all? And I think that the only way to do it is to create an enabling infrastructure where such groups emerge. And one trajectory could be that one of the people in an existing group creates a new one for newcomers, and a friend brings a friend. It's all about community building and a community of communities. I wrote it in the chat only. I got the Hebrew letters and it confused with the English one, so I apologize. So this is why I took the mic. We need to create, this is one option, a community of communities, and create a way to let them emerge naturally in a co-evolutionary process where trust is created through a friend who brings a friend, etc., etc.
And just to pick up on that and looking at time as well, is so Edna, I think you said something very interesting, which is besides the emergent nature behind the enabling infrastructure is spawning out of, you know, growing out of something which exists. And this is why I think this discussion is a lot about, you know, if we decide to proceed together in this path, you know, we start off with what we might call a special interest group within major cities Europe. Let it grow under, you know, the looking at City Plus, under what Hervé and Ruth have been experiencing. I really find it great that Megan's here, because in the US, this ISAC thinking, I believe it actually emerged, but it's a lot more mature than it is in the European Union at the moment. There's a lot to learn there. But, you know, just starting off small, letting it grow, letting the behaviors emerge, letting us all find value in it together, I think is the important thing. Having a facilitation with Remco, as you know, to understand the sort of phases that ISACs in particular as communities go through, being able to draw upon the ENISA guidance that, or let's say thinking that Rossen represents, being part of that EU Horizon Europe or strategic thinking as we try to create more value for our citizens. So I guess this is the point from next steps. We were, you know, on May 18th, we would like to invite you and other colleagues, excuse me, to start properly on that journey, put some structure behind it, understand how it evolves, get some guidance on that enabling infrastructure, those boundaries. And this I think this discussion has shown us there's, let's say, at least an openness. It's an interesting question, Giorgio. I think there's curiosity. I think the openness here is very important, which brings us to sort of the next thinking. Maybe, you know, almost done as well. 5 minutes left. Maybe you can, Giorgio, sort of collect things, and everyone else, you know, feel free to email.
Yes. May I propose that I try to summarize a little bit few things. First, I would like to say that in the chat there is a lot of comments, and we were not able to cover all this, but we will capture all these statements in the chat, and you will get them as part of our report. I see, for instance, here some interesting things about from Flanders, for instance, and it's a pity we don't have the time, but let's try to finish on time. As Oliver said, this is just today. It's just opening the discussion. So why major cities of Europe is so interested in it? First, I would say because it would be the first time we create not only a people that share and exchange information between them, which we do since years, but doing something live, which means people working together, a community of people, as Edna mentioned. And this would be the first case, but I have in mind 2 or 3 more that we can create easily if there are people interested. Second, today it was a start. People, for us all together to understand what we are looking for. Maybe we can say it's a little bit a dream. Why not? We like to dream. I would even say that that probably major cities of Europe has some characteristic that can help in doing that, because in the reality, all the people I see on the screen, I know them. They know each other, which means that it is not really the trust, complete trust, but it's a good start. It's not unknown people, right? And this is another thing I wanted to say. So as Oliver mentioned, on the 18th, 3 p.m., you will get the invitation. We will start building it, which means there is no commitment. Please participate. And then if you like what we are going to propose to you, how we want to shape it and how you want to shape it, then later on, after it, we are going to propose a real, let's say, group, meaning, do you want to be part of it? These are the rules. Do you accept the rules? And so on and so on. And it would be great because from what I learned from different countries, there are already groups working on it, that as Hervé was suggesting, that we try somehow to link groups together so that it will be complicated, I'm sure, step by step. But we must start simple and then find a way to go on this. One thing that makes me very comfortable is not something that Edna or Oliver or myself we have invented, which of course we are very brilliant people, as we know, but this is not the case. The case is that ENISA is supporting that in a very efficient way, which means that we are not alone. We are working in an environment which is already ready to support us. And we need that because we don't have an experience on managing that. We need guidance, we need tools, we need infrastructures, we need everything. And I'm sure our friends in ENISA will help us a lot on this. So this is to summarize my enthusiasm in doing that. If we achieve something there, this is a very big step forward in our community. And so I'm eager to support it. Of course, the ones that will work really are Oliver and you two, and you all. I will just be the cheerleader, if you like. But that's what I wanted to say. Am I forgetting something, Oliver or anybody else?
No, you're going to send out an invite, right?
Yeah, of course. Now, let me just say one thing. I know most of the people here. Some of you, I know who you are, but I don't have your email. If you are new in our community, please send me an email and tell me, Giorgio, please send me the invitation. My email, I show you on the screen so that you can. No, I don't have it here. Anyway, giorgio.priester@majorcities.eu. I write it on the chat if you like. Anyway, if somebody knows that he's a little bit new in the group, please send me an email, okay? giorgio.priester@majorcities.eu. So in conclusion, I would like to thank everybody. This was a great discussion. Thank you, Oliver, for moderating all that. Today I was resting a lot and listening. This was good. As I said, we are going to produce a report. We are going to send the recording of everything. So you will be, if you want to see it day and night, you can see as many times as you want. But to be serious, if you want to engage some of your colleagues, please do it. And that's it. Have a nice evening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Paolo, mica tu rimani
Già
per favore.
fatto, già fatto, te lo mando.
Sì, l'ho presa anch'io la chat comunque.
Ah, perfetto, perfetto. I have a fantastic. We are a fantastic team. Everybody collaborates.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you. So I stop the recording now. Okay.
Ah, fine. Bye bye.